Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope you're doing well. Sorry if you hear a little bit of kind of a background whirring noise. The fan on my laptop is kind of kicked into overdrive, so I will try to speak loud enough so y'all can hear me above that. I am excited to get into today's topic. There is a lot to say, but I definitely want to keep my time down a little bit. So I promised under 20 minutes. I am going to hold myself to that. Really quick, if you don't know me, my name is Corey. I am a full-time artist. I do mostly watercolors. I create weekly videos here on YouTube that I sort of pre-produce and upload. So if you're interested in art and art tutorials and things like that, I would love if you go check out the rest of my channel. But otherwise, I also have, for this month of January 2023, been doing this live art talk series where I've been going live at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time each Friday and talking about a different art topic. And today's art topic is AI art. Now, if you're not really sure what AI art is, it's a very hot topic right now in the art world and in the legal world, because it's kind of setting some unprecedented instances. So AI art can also be known as text-to-image generators, which means that someone can go into one of these kind of programs, enter something like, I want a girl sitting in the grass in a dress painted in the style of Monet. And lo and behold, this generator will kind of send out its bots, do its searches, and generate an image based on those search criteria. Now, as you may imagine, there are some kind of legal questions regarding this from artists, multiple concerns from, is it copyright? Is it taking part of my image and copying it? Or these programs and bots that are being taught how to find these images and create these art styles, are they taking content and learning from art pieces, paintings, drawings, and artists in a way that means they are not getting compensated for that work? So ultimately, this program learns from all kinds of different artists, but then those artists don't ultimately get credit for that learning style. So I'm going to go through, I have some articles linked in the description. I'm also going to be reading from some of these articles a little bit, but very recently, just in the beginning of this year, a class action lawsuit was filed, and I'm going to read from this article. Again, it's linked in the description. It says a class action lawsuit alleges that AI art generators Stability Diffusion, Midjourney, and DreamUp were trained on billions of copyrighted materials without credit, compensation, or consent of content owners. So that really there is kind of the main challenge, or the main rub, and the reason for this lawsuit is that these programs, particularly these three, so it named the three: Stability Diffusion, Midjourney, and DreamUp. And are they in the process of coding and teaching the program and the bots how to create these artworks from text to image? Are the actual artists that these programs are learning from, is it stealing their kind of copyrighted style and content? So it's a very sticky situation, because probably, I imagine, there's going to be the counter argument is the idea that this falls under fair use, and that even people, when they learn how to paint or draw, are mimicking other artists' work that's already in existence. So I imagine it's going to be quite an interesting debate and fight in general, and there is no legal precedent for it, which is why these artists are filing this lawsuit. It says, let's see, further along in the article, while this new technology is enticing, these products infringe on the rights of thousands of artists and creators, according to the Joseph Saveri Law Firm, LLP, which represents the three plaintiffs. And you can read the article if you want to learn their names. But there are three artists who are kind of going up against these three companies. And it's about direct and vicarious copyright infringement. which I didn't look up what that meant. So if you're in the legal world and know a little more about that, feel free to share and in the comments. But ultimately, is it stealing from the original artists? And just like other kind of electronic content, digital content things like streaming services, like obviously, the recording artist is compensated for having their stuff whenever it's listened to on different streaming services. At least that's my understanding of it. So this is slightly different, but that's kind of what they're comparing it to. And moving on to another article, it's talking about how this is a very kind of strong statement, but it kind of stood out to me that one of the attorneys who filed the lawsuit on behalf of these three artists said, a parasite that, if allowed to proliferate, will cause irreparable harm to artists now and in the future. So that's another big concern of artists, is that it's going to ultimately harm their livelihood and their ability to earn money creating art, because a lot of these programs are able to put out content much more quickly than a human is capable of, because it processes tons of data all at once and then it immediately spits out an image at a very low price. And so while artists will have different price points depending on the type of work and things like that, ultimately these are going to be able to win out as far as how quickly they can produce them, and generally at a much lower price point. And sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. So those are kind of the three big text to image AI art programs that are kind of in the hot spot right now, in the hot seat because of that lawsuit. And they, of course, are kind of arguing back that like this falls under fair use. This also helps stimulate creativity. It allows more people to be creative, because if they have an idea, then they can kind of type it in, and it ultimately helps the art world rather than hurting it. And I did think that this was interesting about how there's just the idea of no consent. Like, I think a lot of artists are perfectly fine with like someone else, like an actual person, kind of like mimicking their art style to learn. But then when it's ultimately a program that's taking their style to learn without their consent, and then ultimately creating artwork that comes out of it that will be sold for a profit, that is where I think a lot of the sticky issue is here. Finally, we also are talking about some of the not just text to image generators, but they're also it's called Lensa. It's this app that creates these, like you upload a picture of yourself or take a picture of yourself, and then it puts out ultimately kind of looks like a painted portrait of yourself. And in fact, in some of these, there have even been these kind of like mangled sort of signatures in the bottom, like left or right hand corner of the portrait. And while some artists or folks are thinking, oh my gosh, like it's literally taking pieces of someone's artwork and then mangles up the signature. This article from the Smithsonian talks about that. It says, to be clear, the remains of signatures seen in Lensa's images aren't taken from any one artist. Rather, the AI has gleaned through the images across the internet that it was trained on that a scribbled bit of text often exists in one of the lower corners of a piece of art, and it has tried to replicate that. You may think, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not actually copying exact pieces of someone's artwork. But here's where the article continues, and I think this is the point I really strongly agree with. It says, but instead of adding an air of authenticity to the portraits, the signatures are a visible reminder of who is missing out on profits, real artists whose work was essential in teaching the tool what to create. So again, these are new technologies, new tools, and so the legal precedent has not been set. So I'm personally in support of those artists filing that lawsuit, because I think we have to establish the boundaries now before it gets out of hand. And it kind of comes down to three, for me, and I think for many artists, big questions. So is it actual copyright infringement and or stealing? Like, are these AI bots and programs ultimately stealing the original artwork or the style? Is it copyright infringement? The kind of second big question in mind for me is, does this affect artists' livelihoods? And I think that's going to have a significant impact on where this lawsuit kind of falls in favor of artists or in favor of the AI art tools. But ultimately, if you think about it, again, like I mentioned, these tools can output artwork, and I'll get into that idea of artwork a little later. Is it ultimately going to put it out faster and at a cheaper price? And is that going to undercut what artists are able to do? Because again, you consider, again, there's all the time of people who created the programs they put into it, but ultimately for the consumer, they enter a few words of text and bada bing, bada boom, in a few moments, they have a finished piece of art and they can get it for just a few bucks versus an actual artist who could create something just as good, if not better, definitely in my mind, better. Anything that's going to be created by humans is going to be better, but it's their time, their talent, and the price is going to go up. So ultimately, I think it is going to harm certain artists. Now, some arguments are, oh no, like there's always going to be a market for true art. And in fact, this might drive even further that market of people who are thinking, oh, I don't want like the AI generated art. I want the true art created by an actual person, which, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there will be some of that kind of driving there. But also it just, I think the general world is not familiar with or realizing how AI art gets trained and how it's ultimately creating the artwork being trained on thousands and millions of images from other artists that are ultimately copyrighted. Like even Getty Images has licensing deals, and in order to use their images for certain things, you have to buy a license. And it sounds like, I wish I could find it in this article. Let me see. Getty. Yes. So in the first article I was mentioning, it says Getty also filed a suit in the High Court of Justice in London against Stability AI. It says that Getty Images believes artificial intelligence has the potential to stimulate creative endeavors. Accordingly, Getty Images provided licenses to leading technology innovators for purposes related to training AI systems in a manner that respects personal and intellectual property rights. But then it continues, and Getty says, Stability AI did not seek any such license from Getty Images, and instead, we believe, chose to ignore viable licensing options and longstanding legal protections in pursuit of their own standalone commercial interests. So again, kind of undercutting these already kind of systems that are in place. So I think they're going to have a difficult time ultimately proving that it's not outside the realm of fair use. Unfortunately, I mean, that is a hard thing to prove. If they say, oh no, like it was made with this intention and that falls under fair use and it's not exactly copying, and this is also how humans learn and create art, it's not doing anything different, I think it's going to be hard to prove. But I think the thing that may ultimately wind up in favor of artists is that it could ultimately, these AI programs could ultimately really harm the livelihood of artists in general. And the final big question for me is it raises a question of what even is art? If these machines can create art, what is it? And that's kind of been a long standing question over the history of art. But I do personally think that there has to be a imagining and a creative thought in mind that that person then acts on to themselves create. I'm not saying that someone may not have a creative idea of like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a painting that's like this, and looks like this, type it in, and then they have a finished artwork. But it wasn't ultimately a human that created that. I do think art is an essential part of the human experience, and I do mean human experience. So I feel like taking the human and humanity piece of art and removing it with this AI art instead. And to me, that's pretty sad. Because one of the things about art too that makes it so powerful is like the connection someone has to it. They may know the artist, or the artist may have like has a personal story that goes along with the artwork, and that just enhances the meaning. So again, that kind of human touch, that meaning, that emotion is removed from it. And again, I ultimately think this is one of those quintessential cases of humans being so focused on, yeah, we can do this, let's go forward and move forward, and rushing into it, that they never actually stop to think, should I do this? So yeah, you can, and you could create these bots that ultimately create artwork at a super affordable price. But because we already have human artists in existence, should you? Do you really need to do that? So those are kind of my thoughts on it. Again, we could have like an hours long discussion about this. There's so much. And I know I'm kind of missing certain pieces as well. There's so much to learn. But I think this kind of final case really sums it up for me, again, about the harm it can do to artists. So again, this is linked in the description. This is from an article from The Verge. And this happened in the state of Colorado. A game designer entered a AI-generated artwork into the Colorado State Fair Fine Arts Competition. It was under the digital art, or what is it? Oh, hold on. I think it was the digital art category, so it does technically apply, but it was not mentioned that it was actually a art that produced this image. But this person, this AI generated image, won first place in the art fair. And so this is what this article says. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I had my place and now it has gone. I think the page refreshed while I was loading, so I'm sorry about this. So yes, a game designer has sparked controversy after submitting an image created by an AI text-to-image generator to a state art competition and taking home first prize. And this is what he said. This is what the artist said. I wanted to make a statement using artificial intelligence artwork, he told the Pueblo chieftain. I feel like I accomplished that, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not sure what kind of statement he was trying to make. He didn't kind of elaborate on that. I'm thinking he's probably like the fact that AI art maybe he's trying to make a statement that AI art is as good as, or maybe even better than human generated art. I'm not sure. And to be clear, he did put in his description of the artwork the tool used to generate it, but most people, I think even the judges, don't recognize the names of those text to image generators. So it wasn't spelled out the fact that it was an AI generator that ultimately created the artwork. So again, there's more details in the article, so you can go read that, linked in the description. But that right there just proves that these tools have the power to supplant human artists. And that, I don't think that's okay. I think it's very sad. So, yep, those are my final thoughts on it. I am, under my 20 minutes. This is going to be, for a little while, my last live session. I am going to take a break, definitely for the month of February. I have another project I'm working on. I'm working on developing my own online watercolor course, which I'm very excited about. But I may start up again in March or sometime later this year with these live sessions, maybe do a slightly different format. If you have any ideas for me, it doesn't have to be art talk. It could be things like a studio tour or just doing a quick painting live, kind of things like that. So anyway, if you have any ideas for me, I'd love for you to share them. So farewell for a little while with these live sessions, but I do continue to create content every week. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd really love for you to do that. And also visit my website, CoreyFrankCreates.com. I have my art shop linked on there. All kinds of really great products with my artwork printed on them. And you can actually support a real living artist by doing that rather than these AI companies. All right, everybody, have a fantastic Friday, and I'll see you later.